Thank you for tuning in to Terry Swoop Videos. On today's video, I'm going to do a Where They Now on the actor Philip Michael Thomas. He was a popular actor in the 1980s and 70s, and most of you may remember him from the show Miami Vice, where he played the role of Rico Tubbs. And in the 80s, he was a big heartthrob. The ladies loved Philip Michael Thomas. He got more female attention than Don Johnson, the star of the show. And Miami Vice was one of the most popular shows of the 1980s. Now, Philip Michael Thomas was born in 1949. And he was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. His family moved to San Bernardino, California when he was 8 years old. And he started acting at an early age. He started acting in church plays, and he started singing in a church choir. So he was always fascinated with singing and acting at a very young age. And Philip's first major acting role came in 1972, where he plays a doctor trying to stop this sexually transmitted disease plaguing the town. And he was only 23 years old when he shot his first movie.
Stigma.
I've got it.
It crept around town from girl to boy.
We're a fine church-going community.
You don't get it by sitting on public crappers.
An epidemic of VD in Vietnam, yes. But in the USA, man.
Hey, they think we have a sick.
One case ain't gonna contaminate the whole community.
Yeah, well, there can be no one case without another. That is a simple fact.
Dr. Drawer?
A disease they'd rather die from than admit they have.
It'll be a Wasserman test for each of the girls. That includes you too, Tess.
Never made it with a black man before.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch you with a 40-foot flagpole.
Who did it?
Nigga! Nigga!
This is really gonna grab you by the short hairs, baby. Your daughter was right there in the thick of it.
Panic and violence exploded everywhere.
Philip's second major acting role came in 1976 when he co-stars in the movie Sparkle. Sparkle was hugely successful. It grossed over $30 million at the box office. It's one of the highest grossing black films of the 1970s. And this movie made him an international star. This is when the main public started to recognize who he is. And then in 1978, he plays in a movie called Death Drug. And this was his third starring role in the movie. And this movie revolves around a music artist that becomes addicted to drugs.
This tragic death brings the death toll associated with the killer drug angel dust to 19.
Long time coming. I search for day and night to find that special someone who makes me feel so right. I know you're something special. I can feel it in your vibe. Knowing you lets me know what it means to be alive.
In 1979, Philip plays Eddie Franklin in Roots: The Next Generation. Now, personally, I thought Roots: The Next Generation was just as good as the original version. Now, most people like the original version better than the second version. But I thought Roots: The Next Generation was just as good as the first one, and I thought he was great in the series. In the summer of 1984, Philip lands the biggest role of his career playing Rico Tubbs in Miami Vice. This show did great in the ratings. It was on the air from 1984 to 1990. The first 2 seasons of the show, he only got paid $20,000 per episode. And then he negotiated a raise, and they raised his pay up to $50,000 an episode. But Don Johnson was making $90,000 an episode because he was looked at as the star of the show, and Philip was looked at as the sidekick. Even though most of the ladies were mostly tuning in to see Philip Michael Thomas, he was the one that got all the female attention. He was the reason why the ratings were so high. But after the show went off the air in 1990, he didn't get any major parts after that show went off the air. For some reason, he doesn't get any major acting roles during the 1990s. In Strapped for Cash, he has 11 kids. He starts doing the psychic commercials. And if you grew up in the 90s, these psychic networks were very popular during the 1990s. But what happened was, he ends up being fired and replaced by Miss Cleo. And most of you may remember Miss Cleo from the 90s. She was one of the biggest psychics of the 90s. And he ends up suing the psychic network for $1.5 million for firing him for Miss Cleo. And he ends up winning the case, and he was awarded $1.5 million. And he has 11 kids. And as you can see, his kids look exactly like him. He had 11 kids between 2 marriages. His first marriage was with Patricia Thomas, and his second marriage was with Cassandra Green, who he married in 1986, and he divorced in 1998. And as you can see, his kids look a lot like him. They're all good looking, just like he is. And I'm glad to see that he's a loving father that's there for his kids. And today, Philip is 71 years old. And I think he looks great. He has the long beard, but I think he looks good on him. I'm glad to see that he's still alive and well. He runs a production company. A lot of people have different opinions about this topic. Leave a comment, rate, and subscribe.